Hi everyone, this is Mindy Eggen and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing inspiration using the Whimsical Wings card kit from Tailored Expressions. I am a huge fan of these moths. I think they are a beautiful design. And the second I saw them, I had a few ideas that I wanted to try out using some products that I already had in my stash. So before I get started, here is a look at some of the products. Now, I can't remember everything that comes in the kit. I know you get the word die, but the shadow die you can purchase separate for the word hello. You're also getting the red rubber stamp for Whimsical Wings. There's a coordinating die and stencil. And then these are some bonus items. These are sentiments you can foil and put in the inside of your card. There's also the Whimsical Wings foilable. So there's the solid design and an outline design. I decided I'm just going to stick to the basics to stamp a design and then stencil in my colors. I'm starting with a piece of sugar cube cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm placing this at the bottom of my Misty tool. Now, I removed the foam insert of my Misty because this stamp is actually a red rubber stamp, so there's already foam on it. I used a little bit of repositionable adhesive to secure my cardstock down to my Misty. And then I'm going to ink up my butterflies using the VersaFine black ink. This is going to give me a beautifully crisp stamped image, but it does take a little while to dry. So I decided I was just going to go ahead and stamp a couple more panels since I had everything in place, and it's also going to give these a little bit of time to dry. So I went ahead, put another piece of cardstock in here, and I think I end up doing about 3 panels altogether. The bold design of this image or these images are absolutely stunning. I was so happy with how they stamped. Now, I did use my heat tool to speed up that drying process so I can get to ink blending. I taped down to my work surface one of these craft sheets and I just held it down with a little bit of teal tape. That way I don't have to stop and wipe up my glass mat all the time. And then I put, again, a little bit of that repositionable adhesive on the back to hold my cardstock in place. I'm going to take the first layer of the stencil and you're going to notice there's these squares on there. You can use those to line up your image. So the square is stamped and it's also cut out on the stencil. I do look at that and also kind of look at the designs to make sure that they match up. And then I secured that stencil down in place with Post-it tape. The colors I'm going to use for these this first set is going to be Saltwater Taffy, Plum Punch, and Lime Zest. Now, I did discover when I was playing with these beforehand was that the lighter the color that you use, the more it is going to pop. And you'll see what I mean when I remove the first layer of the stencil here. Now, on camera, it might not seem to pop very much, but it does. It is a very light blue, and it looks amazing next to that black solid image. Next, I'm going to bring in the Lime Zest. This one is really going to pack a punch when I remove the stencil. I'm just using some mini blending brushes to add my color over all the open areas of the stencil. Oh, right there, I was just so happy with how this was already turning out. Now, this is the third layer of the stencil. This is going to be Plum Punch. I already had some on my blending brush, so I was trying to use up what I already had there. I do end up picking up some more ink from the ink pad, but I tapped off a lot because I did not want this to come in super dark. It just doesn't seem to stand out as much when the ink colors are super dark. So I was careful with that, just kind of went light-handed. And that is my first set. I think I might have called them butterflies. Moths, they're moths. So I cleaned my stencil with some rubbing alcohol and I'm going to do another set. So I actually have 2 more versions I'm going to do. I will end up just kind of showing you the reveal of each one, but I will walk through the colors for you. So for this one, I'm kind of going with more monochromatic colors. The first one I'm using here is going to be Rosewater. Then I will be bringing in Pink Champagne and Raspberry Sorbet. And doing this in kind of that monochromatic color in any of these shades will look so beautiful as long as you have in there a light color, because I think that's what really makes it pop off of the black. So that was the second layer of the stencil. Here is the third layer, the reveal, and that was Raspberry Sorbet. Then I have one more set that I want to create with. This one I did Pink Champagne for one of my colors, Basil, and then this last one, Pineapple. I couldn't remember, but Pink Champagne, basil, and pineapple. So that was a very unique color combination. Now, the dies will cut out all of the moths at once, so I lined those up and ran it through my die cut machine, and I'll do that for my other two panels as well. And then I'm going to move on to creating my backgrounds. So I had a couple different backgrounds picked out, or a few different ideas. I'm going to start with the Moonlit stencil. This was one of the first ideas I had, was using this moon, because that's what I picture with the moths, is the moth flying in front of a moon. So I have another piece of white cardstock that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 placed onto my work mat. And then I taped the first layer of the stencil down. I kind of shifted it up so my moon will be more towards the top. And then I'm using the first layer of the stencil, which is really just a circle. And I'm ink blending with banana cream pie. So it's a really light yellow. Now, leaving that first color, or that first stencil in place, I'm going to come in with pineapple and go just around the outer edges. This blend does not have to be perfect. The inks will kind of smooth out as they dry, but also I'm going to be adding another layer over the top. There's actually 3 layers to this stencil, but I will just be using the 2. I love the detail of this stencil, but I didn't want it to compete with the detail of my stamped image. So again, I'm using pineapple ink, coming in around the edges and then just slightly kind of grazing over those details. So that way it's subtle. It's there, but it's very subtle. Now, there was an idea I wanted to try, so I am going to take a circle Stacklets die, and I picked one that was a little bit bigger than the moon, and then I'm going to die cut this out and set it off on the side for later on when I try out my idea. In the meantime, I am going to be working on a couple other backgrounds, and I'm going to come back to this one. Sorry about jumping around. I was trying to get all of my ink blending and die cutting done before I start card assembly. So for my next idea here, I am actually using the masking circles stencil. So there's a couple sizes of circles here. I place the smaller one up towards the top of my card. I'm using the leftover ink on both my yellow brush and then my mini blending brush. And that had some kind of dark red on it, maybe some pink. But when I mixed it with the yellow, it has that fade off into orange. There are also some masking circles in there. So I rolled up some Post-it tape and placed it over. I'm going to call this my sun, because I think this background ends up making it a sun, but it could have been a moon. Lots of different colors of moons. Something else I have had in my stash that I have been just dying to play with. These are the Set the Scene Mountaintops, which I need to play with these more. They are beautiful. There is a flat edge, and then there is the bottom edge that has the mountaintop. So for my card, I have the flat edge towards the top of my card and the mountaintop towards the bottom. I used some Post-it tape to hold that down. You could also just take a strip of Post-it tape and place it all the way across so you don't risk getting any ink up into the other area of your card. The first color I'm using is Pink Champagne. It's going to be darker towards the top, and then I'm going to have it fade off towards the bottom. And you can decide how far down you want that mountaintop to go. I'm going to be layering this with all 3 layers. A really kind of fun thing about this stencil set is you can flip it to get different versions of your mountaintop, depending where you want it to go. I flipped mine so that my peak is over on the right-hand side. Again, the flat edge of the stencil is facing towards the top, and the mountaintop is at the bottom. And now I'm going to come in with a darker color, and I believe this one is a Raspberry Sorbet. And I like to go heavy-handed towards the top and have it kind of fade off a little bit as it goes down. Now, I do plan on adding a 3rd layer here, so I'm okay if it overlaps because my 3rd layer is going to be my darkest layer. I could have probably went with even more of a darker red, but I decided to bring in purple since I did have some purple in some of my moths. I wasn't sure which one was going to go on this card, so I just thought I would throw in a purple. So I am bringing in the Plum Punch. I was getting a little close to the bottom, so I don't have a lot of that down there. Again, I'm going to tap off with my brush so I don't come in with so much ink, but my heavier areas are going to be towards the top. So now I have this beautiful mountainscape. I decided to turn this into more of a daytime scene. It could have gone nighttime, but I am doing daytime, and I'm bringing in the saltwater taffy, just going around the very outer edges, maybe coming in a little bit towards that sun, but not really a ton. It's just enough to add some color to the background. Another set that I've had in my stash that I have been dying to play with is called Through the Woods. I love, love, love trees. I love silhouette images. So I really wanted to see how this would look with the mountaintop. I picked out a few of the trees. First, I start with this one that's going to go more on the left-hand side of my card. So it's hanging off of the edge a little bit. I'm going to stamp that down with the VersaFine black ink. And that everything just pops when you do that. Because of that stark contrast, I love how these came out. So here I placed 2 more trees that I could fit on the front of the card, inking those up with that VersaFine black ink and stamping those down. This is another stamp set. I don't know why I waited so long to play with it, but I really love it. And I started bringing in some of these stamped images and playing around with which color scheme was going to look best with my mountaintops. Now, before I make any final decisions on that, I'm going to set it off on the side, and I'm bringing that moon back in that I die cut. So there was an idea I saw on Pinterest of creating a crescent moon. I'm taking one of those circle stacklet dies, and I'm going to overlap my moon. Now, when I die cut this out, I am not going to have that white line like I do on the outside edge. But I think this is a really cool idea to create your own kind of crescent moon. To go with my moon, I'm going to bring in, I think it's called Twinkle Twinkle background stamp. Again, it is a red rubber stamp. So I removed the foam insert from my Misty, and I'm going to place this down and pick up my background stamp with the Door of the Misty. I'm bringing in blueberry, I think this is blueberry cardstock, and I'm going to place it over my background, add a little bit of repositionable tape, then close my Misty so that the back of my Misty is going to pick up my cardstock and it's placed exactly where I want it to go. I'm going to ink up my background stamp with Buttercream Frosting, which is a pigment ink. I keep grabbing it off of my shelf thinking it is a light yellow, but it's really a pigment ink. And I thought it would just be a nice change up versus a bright white. So I stamped that down, and I could have left that, but I decided to bring in some diamond embossing powder. So here, really throughout this video, I am bringing in supplies and products that I have purchased myself that I have just really been wanting to play with. So I'm kind of throwing it all together in one video here. So I sprinkled on the diamond embossing powder and then melted that with my heat tool. There is a hello sentiment that is included in the Whimsical Wings kit. I decided to bring in the on occasion because I wanted, since I had so many cards, I wanted to have different sentiments throughout. So I stamped those, die cut them. I layered up die cuts so that it was stacked up for dimension. And then I started bringing these in to do my card designs. This particular card is created just like the pink mountains I did, except I did it in shades of blue. So I have kind of a nighttime scene and a daytime scene. I believe the colors I used for those mountaintops was saltwater taffy, and I think blueberry was my other color. I'm adding my thinking of you sentiment down towards the bottom there. It's the first one that I adhered down. The moth, I did die cut out an additional piece, layered that together, so it's going to create just a little bit of the lift. Now, whenever I am gluing these down, because they're kind of thick and heavy, and I'm using liquid glue, I am going to place something heavy on them and let it sit for a minute so it really adheres to the cardstock. All of these I went ahead and added to side folding card bases. Next is my pink mountains, and I played around a little bit with the design of where I wanted this to go. I opted to go with having my sentiment over on the left-hand side, and then my moth will kind of go kitty corner from it. So again, adding my liquid glue to add my sentiment, place something heavy on it. This one, I decided to pop up just a little bit more with some thin foam squares and add that down in the corner of my sun, I should say. And then for the last card, which is going to be that Twinkle Stars background and my crescent moon, I am going to add some foam squares behind my crescent moon because I really want that to not only pop off of that background, but I think the foam squares are going to really help adhere to that textured background. Then I can add my get well soon over in that top right-hand corner. For my moth, this one is going to be kind of half and half. Some of it's going to be on the background, some of it's overhanging the moon. So I will add some small foam squares to the top half of the moth and then liquid glue to the bottom half of the moth. So these were really just ideas I had playing around in my head as soon as I saw the kit. They are gorgeous. I love how these came out. I have that kind of more twinkle stars background. Then I have one that's got these mountaintops, and I'm really excited that I was finally able to set aside some time, pull out these products that I have purchased and have been sitting on, and giving me more ideas to create as I was creating these. Now, I do have a couple additional cards that I had played with before I filmed these, and these were kind of the original idea that I had, and then I stemmed off of this. So these both were created with that Moonlight stencil, the twinkle stars background, and adding a shimmer spray over the top. I think this was the unicorn spray from Tailored Expressions. Very simple to do, not a lot to it, but it was kind of my stepping stone for the rest of the card. I will have all of the supplies that I used in today's video listed down below in the video description and over on my blog, along with additional pictures. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I absolutely had fun playing with this kit. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again real soon.